So we are going to start with a very lightweight topic. I think everyone needs less of cognitive load post-lunch. So the topic of this discussion is the art of selling in product management. And it's not about whether you need to be a salesperson or whether you need to be in a sales force before joining product management. It's more about why you need the skill set of a salesperson to be successful in a product management role. And this is a very soft skill. A lot of companies don't test you, whether in interview or in journal, on this skill set. But this is one of the key skills which you need to be successful as a product manager. So let's discuss that. A brief intro about me. I started my career as a software engineer. I worked as a software engineer for 3 to 4 years. Moved into product management, have been in product management for around 8 years. So it's a transition from a developer to a product management, no sales background. I've worked in online video, e-commerce, online travel, and telecom industries. I'm currently a senior product manager at Amazon. Previously, I've worked with 2 online players. One is a ClearTrip, which is in India, online travel company, and the second one is Flipkart, which is the biggest e-commerce company in India. If you see this background, most of my experience has been in consumer products, but the skill set which I'm talking about is equally relevant for B2C as well as B2B product managers. In fact, it's more relevant for enterprise or B2B product managers. Okay, so to give some context to the talk, let's see. So Steve Jobs is regarded as one of the best product managers the market has ever seen. Obviously, he was way more than a product manager. He was an executive and a lot of having a lot of exceptional qualities. But for the purpose of this talk, let's see what are the skills he had which are of relevance for a product manager and which are of relevance for this talk. So one of the key things was he had a great vision with a very forward-looking thought process. And the second was he was one of the best storytellers in the world. And that's where the whole selling part comes into place. You need to be a great storyteller, a great salesperson to sell your vision to customers, to other stakeholders, to investors, to everyone else. And both of these skills go together. If you are lacking any one of these two, that will cause issues in your success as a product manager. So we are going to discuss these things, and we are going to discuss some of these skills and how they apply into a day-to-day job of a product manager. This is one of the quotes which I picked up from the internet, which says product management is selling all the time to all kinds of stakeholders. And why are we saying that product management needs to sell? And what is the core fundamental behind that? In every company, whether it's a startup or it's a large company, the resources are constrained, whether it's headcount, whether it's developers, whether it's marketing budgets, everything, right? So you're always trying to fight for the resources as a product manager, irrespective of the scale and stage of the company. And it's very important for you to ensure that you sell your vision and your ideas to all the stakeholders to ensure that you are making progress on your product. And this term is often used. There are multiple terms which are used in this context. Some companies say convincing, some of the teams use aligning stakeholders. But fundamentally, what you are trying to do is you are trying to sell your idea to different stakeholders and get them to buy your idea. let's look at some of the things which you as a product manager are supposed to sort of sell or convince other stakeholders on a day-to-day basis. So you have to sell the ideas related to your product. The ideas might not be your own. They might be coming from different sources, different team members, etc. But it's your responsibility to sell those ideas and to get a buy-in for those ideas. You have to sell the long-term vision of the product or the area overall. You have to sell your roadmap to many, many teams within the organization to get them behind what you are trying to do. Many times, depending upon where you stand in the hierarchy of the product management, you will be required to sell your ideas even to potential employees, not just employees or talent you're trying to attract in product management, but even to engineers. Why should they come and join your team and work on your vision and on your product? You'll be required to make a lot of selling to marketing and sales team. You don't control their budgets. You don't control how they spend that. So if you have to ensure that whatever you build goes out in the market and there's a good backing and good investment in terms of marketing and sales behind the product, you need to ensure that you convince those teams, you sell your ideas to those teams, and they are behind you. Only if you do all of this stuff, only then you will be successful in launching a good product which has a good attraction in the market. Product management is not just about launching something. It's about ensuring that whatever you launch is successful. And all of these things are required for making that success. So let's look at the hierarchy of product management in a typical organization. And then we'll go into each of these roles to see how the idea of selling applies to the day-to-day work of each of day-to-day work across each of those roles. And then we'll see why the skill set is so important. Again, this hierarchy varies from company to company, depending on the stage and scale of the company. It's more of a general hierarchical order. So you have product managers or associate product managers. You have group product managers, senior PMs. Then you have founders, VP, director, product, etc. Again, it changes. Some companies have more ladders. Some companies have less ladder, depending on their scale, depending on their organization. But we will look at the skill sets which are required in each of these roles pertaining to this specific topic. And then we'll see why the skill set is so important. Let's start with product managers. So on a day-to-day basis, what product managers are doing they're trying to sell their near-term vision, whether it's a 3-month, 6-month vision. They are trying to sell the feature ideas. They are trying to sell the projects. And what you will see is a lot of convincing around these things, a lot of selling around these things in this specific role is to very limited sort of stakeholders. So most of the times, product managers in their role are trying to sell it to their relevant engineering teams, right? Whether to build this feature or whether to prioritize something else over the other, whether to pick project A versus project B, and to get them behind their near-term vision. So in terms of the number of stakeholders you are trying to sell to in this role, it's limited. In terms of the different kind of stakeholders, it's limited. It's pretty much similar kind of stakeholders. So it's very important to understand the skill set at this stage and develop and refine that skill set when you're entering into product management. Because as we'll see in the next slides, this skill set is going to become more and more important as we grow up in the hierarchy. The option for you to make mistakes at this stage are there. The implications if you make mistakes are not high. But as you grow up in the hierarchy, the stakes are higher. The implications of making mistakes are higher. Let's look at the next level in the hierarchy, what you are trying to sell to a lot of different stakeholders is the long-term vision, the roadmap of the product area. And many times, again, depending on the scale of the company, these can be 3-year vision, which are very big projects, which require a lot of investment. At many times, you will have to sell this to the leadership to get an approval for the headcount, to get an approval for the budgets. Many times, you are selling this idea, selling this vision, and you're playing a very active role in attracting talent. Again, not just in product management, but across the board to get engineers motivated and to get different teams motivated to work behind your product, behind your vision. You're selling to marketing, asking them to invest heavily behind whatever the launch goes. You're selling it to sales, especially in B2B roles, why a salesperson should go to the customer and pitch your product versus some other product. You're selling it to PR teams. Again, there are limited resources, there is limited space, limited bandwidth, which can go out in the market, why it should be your product or why it should be your launch that should occupy that space. So what you'll see in the specific order is there is a lot of selling involved, and there is a lot of selling to different kind of stakeholders when compared to this role, which creates sort of challenges and learning which you need to develop when you reach at this stage. Through the process of growing in your role, you need to understand that there are challenges which are going to come, and selling is going to take a big part of your job. If you move up the ladder, the stakes go even higher. What you are trying to do is you are trying to sell your organization vision. So it's not just a product vision. You are trying to convince leadership. You are trying to sell to investors or to board members, etc. The vision for your organization, what should your organization do, why it should be organized in a way. And the stakes are higher. There are careers of people, careers of your team, which are dependent on whether you make a successful sale or not, or whether you are approaching it in the right way or not. The second aspect is you are spending a lot of time convincing your leadership, selling them the ideas and vision to get more budget. In case of founders, they are spending a lot of that time in getting the funding. But essentially, if you see at the core of it is the skill set of sales, which you are trying to sell your product ideas, your product visions to the next one in your hierarchy to get the backing which you need to go to build a product and to be successful in the market. The third area is around the product acquisitions. A lot of the senior leadership spends time on creating ideas, on coming up with propositions around whether they should acquire a company or whether they should acquire a product, and they need to be really good at the skill set of selling to ensure that they are taking the right decisions, and if the decision is right, they are able to convince the right audience, which they need to convince for this. So what you will see is as we go up this hierarchy, one thing is you will need to spend more and more time in selling, whether to internal stakeholders or to external stakeholders. You will need to sell to a lot of different kind of stakeholders. So as you go up in the hierarchy, the type and variety of stakeholders which you are selling to become more diverse. And as you go up in the hierarchy, the kind of selling you are doing has much higher stakes. Any wrong decision at that level can have much higher implications compared to a decision at a lower level. So what PM should focus on is building the skill set as they enter the product management, and then sort of refining that skill set as they grow up the ladder. So coming back to the same code, so product management is selling all the time to all kind of stakeholders. What you are trying to sell is essentially your ideas, your vision, your roadmap, selling it to different kind of stakeholders, convincing them to ensure that you have a successful launch of your product or your idea. And finally, you need to ensure that the kind of selling you do to different kind of stakeholders is sort of customized, and you have considered their motivations of buying into your vision, into your roadmap, into consideration while making your pitch. So you'll be selling to customers, you'll be selling to internal stakeholders, which can be different engineering teams, different marketing teams, etc. Growing up the ladder, you'll be selling your ideas to investors and getting their buy-in. You will be selling your ideas to potential employees to get them whether to join your organization, whether to join your team. You need a lot of selling to do as a product manager. So this was the key of the topic, that as a product manager, as you grow, you need to realize that this is a skill set which is not tested across the board, across the companies, but this is more of a soft skill set which is very important for your success as a product manager in any kind of environment, in any scale of company. That's it. Thank you.